Welcome to the CCR ETA 2110 Recipients On-Demand Evaluation Resource Series, a joint effort of the Washington State Evaluation Partnership, or WSEP, and Arizona State University, ASU. We run national evaluation centers for the CDC Community Health Workers for COVID-19 Response and Resilient Communities, CCR program. And we bring this offering to you today in the spirit of collective learning, understanding, and exploration. This video will introduce you to the equity checklist. After interacting with this video, what we want you to be able to know, feel, or be able to do is understand the major ideas or components of the equity checklist, understand how the equity checklist can be used, and feel encouraged and motivated to apply the lessons of the equity checklist to your work and communities. So let's jump in. The equity checklist was developed to offer considerations for how to infuse equity principles into program and evaluation design and implementation. The checklist includes prompts for planning concrete steps that promote equity within the program, as well as space to track progress on those plans. Two of our WSEP members, Karina and Victoria, recently met to discuss the equity checklist and wanted to share their conversation with you. Let's observe.
Let me call Victoria.
Hi,
Hey, Victoria, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you? It's so good to hear your voice.
Oh, it's great to hear your voice too. I'm okay. Thank you for being so flexible about our meeting today. I wanted to do a Zoom call, but we actually ran out of power today.
What? Are you okay? Is everything okay?
Everyone is fine. It's just, as you know, California has had these torrential downpours and it's impacted the power grid. And so hopefully the power's back in a few hours, but yeah, but we're okay. It's fine.
Awesome. Again, you're reminding me why I am so glad that I live in the Northeast. But again, glad that you're okay and nothing too terrible has happened with the weather.
Yeah, thank you. And in any case, I'm just glad we were able to find time in our busy schedules to talk about the on-demand offering for our 2109 sites.
Absolutely. No, I'm thrilled to. Thank you so much for your time, as always. And when I think about what we're trying to accomplish, I'm imagining we want this on-demand offering to really focus on that equity checklist. So would you do me a favor and remind me where that checklist even comes from?
Yeah, for sure. So the checklist was created by my colleagues at John Snow Research and Training Institute, but it draws on and is inspired from the Equitable Evaluation Initiative and MDRC's Equity Collaborative. And so basically it just recognizes that evaluation can and should be a tool to advance equity and provides a series of questions and considerations to help ensure that the work we do as evaluators utilizes an equity approach.
Oh, wow, that is just so powerful. And I'm thinking about my own experience as a community health worker for many, many years, and now also a new evaluator. And I feel like so many times we talk about equity, but we don't always have the tools to actually operationalize it in the work that we do. And so the checklist to me really sounds like a way for us to ask the right questions, if that makes sense, right? To make sure our data is valid and useful. Valid because community is at the center of the evaluation, and also useful because it helps challenge systems that produce health inequities in the first place.
I love it. I couldn't agree with you more, Victoria.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, will you please walk me through the checklist?
For sure. And I'll say, I know it can seem a bit overwhelming, but the beauty of this tool is that you can really, it meets you where you're at. And I'll talk more about that.
Pulling up the list in front of me so I can see it. And what I'm seeing is that at each stage of the evaluation, there are a series of consideration that an evaluation team can ask themselves to make sure they're really integrating equitable evaluation practices. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So everything from crafting an evaluation team that's reflective of the communities that you're working with, to building a timeline that provides opportunities to discuss and address equity issues, to examining analysis limitations for bias are included in this checklist, which is really cool.
Wow. Wow. Again, this is extremely comprehensive. I love this. And I'm curious that once an evaluation team has really thought through and discussed some of these considerations, what would happen next?
Right. It's a great question. So you have all these considerations at the left-hand side if you're looking at the document. And basically, teams can use the column on the right of each of the considerations to really reflectively ask themselves and describe how they are or are not yet being implemented into the evaluation practice.
Yeah. Yeah, this makes so much sense to me. And I really appreciate that there's also that additional kind of set of columns for teams to really assess their progress and to make notes. So to me, this feels like a living document that teams can be using towards that continuous improvement.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it goes back to the point I was making before about really meeting you where you're at. So these questions are meant to make equitable evaluation tangible and achievable for teams. And so as you're using this list, each team is able to assess where they are and also hold themselves accountable to their equity goals.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And I completely agree. But I do have a question. So
Yeah.
I know that ideally that this list is being used even kind of before design phase, right? Right when a team is really coalescing and coming together. But I'm curious, can teams still use this checklist if they're already kind of far along or even maybe wrapping up their evaluation processes?
Yeah, that's really the beauty of each of these sections, right? And as CHWs, we say like meet people where they're at. Same with this checklist.
Yeah,
So
totally.
no matter where a team is in their evaluation, from design to dissemination, it really is never too late for them to implement equitable evaluation considerations. And so regardless of whether it's at the very beginning, which is ideal, or towards the end, the more evaluators use this checklist, the more it just becomes a part of how they approach this work until eventually all of their evaluations are done through an equity lens.
That is amazing. And this has been so helpful. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel really prepared about the checklist. How do you feel?
Me too. Sadly, I still don't have power. But let's find a time and pick a time next week to record it together. How does that sound?
Yes, that's perfect. So I am going to email you. When you get power, you'll see it. And then we can figure out a time tomorrow. Okay?
That sounds perfect. I'll talk to you then.
Awesome. Talk soon.
Bye, Victoria.
Bye.
Now that Victoria and Karina have introduced us to the equity checklist, let's take a closer look at some of the items in the list. I'd like to give you a quick overview of the different components of the equity checklist, as well as some of the consideration items under each section. First, we have background. In background, some items include project team reflects multiple backgrounds and cultures of the communities they serve, and community/program audience should be involved beyond review and input, but rather in co-developing the evaluation and interpreting findings. For each of these considerations under background, you can write in the second column here how this is being done in your project or evaluation, or how it is not yet being done, but plans to be. This third column is for status, and this fourth column is for more notes. Next, timeline. An item under timeline includes timeline builds in time to reassess stakeholder priorities. Again, you have your 3 columns where you can take notes here. Our third category is project reflection. Some items under project reflection include power dynamics are addressed and discussed throughout the evaluation. And Evaluation works to continually increase awareness of equity considerations. Our fourth topic is data collection and analysis. A couple items under this section include definition of success and interpreting analysis is created through collaboration of additional stakeholders, the program, community, etc. Outcomes are defined from a strengths-based perspective instead of from a deficit perspective. Finally, we have reporting and presenting your findings. A couple of items under this section include recommendations are realistic and culturally appropriate for the given context. The project is able to measure social benefits of the intervention. And dissemination activities reach the communities that are involved. Finally, the bottom of the checklist has the source material from which this checklist draws upon. Now that we've taken a closer look at the checklist, I have a few reflection questions for you to answer, either individually or together with your team. First, how might you apply what you learned today with your team? Taking a closer look at the checklist, what is one item under each section that you might intentionally assess with your team to practice more equitable evaluation? We hope that this video gave you some inspiration and ideas for how you might embed equity into your evaluations, no matter where you are in the process. Remember, this checklist is meant to make equitable evaluation tangible and achievable for teams, and it should be treated as a living document that teams can use toward continuous improvement. By using this list, you should also be able to assess where you are and also hold yourself accountable to your equity goals. The full checklist can be found on the AMP platform. If you are a 2109 grantee who is interested in applying this checklist to your program, please reach out to your 2110 evaluation TA provider via AMP. We'd like to give a huge thank you to those from whom this checklist draws upon, including the Equitable Evaluation Framework Principles and the MDRC Equity Collaborative. And thank you to Victoria Adewumi and Karina Pinto for sharing their thought process around the checklist with us. We'd also like to thank the partnership between the CDC, WSEP, and ASU for this collaboration. And finally, and most importantly, we'd like to thank you, 2109 grantee sites and community health workers, for taking the time to learn about and reflect on this important topic and working to transform our ways of working toward equity. Thank you.